Hi there, Stampin' Peace friends. Happy November. I'm excited because today is the first Thursday of the month, so I have for you a new 12 by 12 one sheet wonder. And today in this demonstration, while you can use any paper you'd like, I'll be using the Weekend Adventures Designer Series paper. And this is a special pack because it comes with 3 different sheets and you get 4 of each. So it's a great way to make lots of cards. I'll be using the check, the plaid, the houndstooth, whatever you want to call it. Here's the back. Here's some with nice evergreens and acorns on the back. And then this one, which has kind of an outdoor nature adventure theme to it. So I decided that this month I needed masculine cards. So that's why I chose this. So you choose the designer series paper, stamps, colors, etc. that are right for the cards you need to make, or perhaps you're just building up your stash of cards to have at the ready. So let's get started now. And the first and most important part of any one sheet wonder is how we cut our designer series paper. And I am starting with a 12 by 12 sheet. And my first cut is going to be at 2.5 inches. And if you're using directional paper, go ahead and cut it exactly as I'm showing you, and then use the card sketches exactly like you will see me use making this set of 12 cards. So my next cut is going to be at 2 3/4 inches. So 2.5, 2 3/4, and then 3 inches. And I'll be left with a 3 3/4 inch wide strip. So going back to the beginning, I always like to lay out my pieces just like I cut them. So this 2.5 by 12 inch piece, I'm turning to the horizontal position, and I am cutting at 5 inches. And I'm going to do that twice. And these 2.5 by 5 inch pieces will be used for card sketch A. I have this 2.5 by 2 inch piece left that will be used for card sketch B. And then next I'm ready to cut my 2 3/4 inch strip. Turning that to the horizontal position, I'm going to cut at 4 inch increments. And all 3 of these 2 3/4 inch by 4 inch pieces will be used with card sketch C. Next, I'm using my 3 inch by 12 inch strip in the horizontal position. I'm going to cut at 3 inches twice. And these 3 by 3 squares I'll be using for card sketch D. And then what's left, I'm going to cut at 5.5 inches. And both the 3 by 5.5 and the 3 by 1/2 inch strip will be used for card sketch E. And in fact, that strip is going to be flipped over for my card. And then lastly, I have this piece of 3 3/4 inch by 12 inch strip, and I want to cut at 4 inch increments. So 4 inches and then 4 inches. And then each of these, I'm going to stack mine and cut them all at once. You may want to cut them separately, and that's perfectly okay. But each of these is going to be cut. So I've got the 3 3/4 inch side at the top and the 4 inch along the side. And I'm going to make or cut 1¼ inch strips. One and a quarter inch strips. And with all of these strips, I'm actually going to be making 3 cards. I'm going to set them over here for now, because when I make those 3 cards, I want to pull the pieces. It's not so obvious with the pattern I've chosen, but some of the DSP patterns, it would be more obvious. I want them to fit together like a puzzle. So I'll take one from each of the 3 stacks when I'm ready to make those 3 cards. All right, for card sketch A, I've got these 2 pieces of 2.5 by 5 inch strips. And what I want to do is I'm just going to find the center. It doesn't have to be exact, but as close as you can get. Okay, so the center of 2.5 is 1¼ inch. Whoops. And there's no tip on that pencil. And I'm just going to go like this and make a little dot right there. For the sake of time, and because I'm comfortable doing so, I'm going to cut both of these at once. You may choose to cut them individually, whatever you're comfortable with, but I'm going to just cut a small slip, 1/2 inch or less, up at the center. And then I'm going to go from the corner, left corner, to that top point. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, right corner to the top point of that pencil mark I made. And look how easy that is to make some banner cuts. You can also measure it out and draw it out if you want. I don't think that's necessary for you to do, but you do whatever makes you feel comfortable. So obviously I'm making 2 cards here, and where's my adhesive? I'm going to start by adding my DSP banners to my card fronts. And I'm putting these all the way to the top edge of the card base and centering it from left to right. You can see it takes up a good part of that card front, but you've got that nice decorative banner cut. And I should tell you that my card bases measure 8.5 by 5.5 inches, and I scored it 4¼ down the middle. I did use basic beige 4 inches by 5¼ for the inside of my cards. And then I've got my sentiments already stamped and layered. So for this, I stamped in Cajun Craze ink on basic beige cardstock that measures 3¼ inches by 1¾ 3¼ by 1¼ for the basic beige. And then I mounted it on top of black cardstock, which measures 3.5 by 2 inches. 3.5 by 2 inches. And you know, for the sake of time, because I am making several cards during a One Sheet Wonder demonstration, that I like to prep the card bases and sentiments and various things ahead of time, just to be respectful of everyone's time. So those are my 2 card sketch A's, okay? And I'm going to show you at the end. I'm not going to embellish these really, but I am going to show you some die cuts that I added to these as embellishments after I get through all 12 of the cards. So next, I'm making a single card, and I'll be using this 2.5 inch by 2 inch piece of the Weekend Adventure DSP that I cut from my One Sheet Wonder. And I'm going to mount that onto basic black cardstock that measures 2 3/4 inches by 2 1/4. 2 3/4 by 2 1/4. I've prepared a basic black card base, 8.5 by 5.5 inches, scored at 4 1/4 down the middle, and I've got my basic beige 4 by 5 1/4 inside. I'm adding a layer of Cajun Craze cardstock that measures 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. Oh, and I should have told you. Let me grab my silicone craft sheet since I already put adhesive on this. Before adhering your pieces, just lay out your layers on top of your 4 inch by 5 1/4 inch piece of Cajun Craze. Then, and the reason I'm doing that, and you don't want to adhere it just yet, the reason I'm doing that is I want to stamp my sentiment between the bottom of my layers and the bottom of the Cajun Craze cardstock. So to do that, I just want to place my DSP layers in there and not adhere it yet. That way, if I've made a mistake, it's crooked, I drop the stamp, I can always flip it over and have another chance. So here I'm going to adhere this flat. And again, at the end, I'll show you the die cuts I use to embellish these cards. And then I'm ready to add this to my card front. So that's card B, and I will be putting a focal point here. Then let's move on to card sketch C. And for this, I am making 3 cards. And there are some more pieces and parts to this, but they're all very, very easy. I want to show you that I started with a basic black card base, okay, 8.5 by 5.5 inches, scored at 4 1/4 down the middle again. Once again, inside, I'm using basic beige that measures 4 inches by 5 1/4. And on the front, I've got a couple of things going on before I even get to adding my DSP. I've cut for each of my 3 cards I will make with Card Sketch C, I cut 2-inch squares of Cajun Craze, and I adhered those to my card front, bottom left corner and top right corner, and I took them all the way to the edges. Okay, so my Cajun Craze squares match up with the edges of my card base. Okay, you see that? Now, these, I cut basic black cardstock that measures 3 inches by 4 1/4, so 3 inches by 4 1/4, and I'm using that to layer my DSP on top of. And these center layers, the DSP mounted onto the black cardstock, I have popped up on dimensionals. Okay, so these 2 layers I have popped up on dimensionals. So now I'm ready to add my focal point. And I'm going to show you how to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and first adhere the two I've already stamped, but I want to take you through the stamp process of how I got two colors on this one stamp. And this stamp is from the Loveliest Tree stamp set. Loveliest Tree. And also the sentiment I'm adding is also from that Loveliest Tree stamp or stamp set. And I stamped it in black Memento ink, and I've punched it with a 1.5-inch circle punch. You can punch it, you can die cut it, different shapes, different sizes, whatever meets your needs for the stamp set and sentiments that you're using. So here's my sentiment for this one. But first I want to show you how I stamped the tree, because it's just one stamp, but I've got two colors there. So first I ink it up with my garden green ink pad. Then I've took a early espresso Stampin' Write marker. You will maybe remember that our Stampin' Write markers are being phased out. Since we have gotten our Stampin' Blends alcohol-based markers several years ago, more people are using those to color. So these original markers from however many years ago, decades ago, are being phased out. However, you can get them on sale right now at a discounted price on stampinpiece.com/shop-SU. And they're sold not individually, but in color families. So brights, neutrals, regals, subtles, in colors, that sort of thing. But I still love having them. They remade them just a few years ago, and I love the fine tip so much more than what was on there before. This fine tip, I will keep my Stampin' Write markers because I love this tip for writing on the insides of my cards, writing quick notes. So let me show you now what I did. So I stamped the whole image with my garden green ink pad, and then I'm just going to do some brush strokes with my Stampin' Write marker for some of these branches throughout the tree. You don't have to be exact or perfect. Promise me it will turn out. Just go a light hand, and of course then the trunk of the tree. Then I'm going to huff on it. When I say huff, I just mean breathe heavily. And that will moisten any of the ink that may have dried from when I first inked it up with that garden green ink pad. And then I simply stamp onto my cardstock. And there I have my two colors. Now I will say, when I was doing this for my sample, I realized after I made the sample that I pulled my my early espresso marker. I could have used black because it coordinates with all the other black in my cards. And I'm using black Memento ink for many of my sentiments. But what I discovered was, with the combination of the garden green ink and the early espresso marker on top, that color really is more black. It's maybe a lighter shade of black, but it's definitely more black than the early espresso, which kind of surprised me. In a good way, though, in a good way. So let me add this to the center. And I have, when I show you my samples, I have an alternative for this as well. And there is my sentiment, sending heartfelt sympathy. So now I have these three rather masculine or nature themed sympathy cards. Next, I'll be using my 3-inch squares. Let me put this aside. I'm going to switch to a different pile. Okay, so for these cards, these 3-inch squares, I'm making 2 cards with them. And I've got card base that measures 5.5 by 8.5 inches, scored at 4 1/4 down the center, and then my basic beige 5 1/4 by 4 inch inside. I've cut basic black cardstock that measures 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 inches to layer my 3-inch Weekend Adventure DSP squares on top of. And what I want you to notice about the placement of these squares is that I basically was looking at this one corner or the 2 sides when I was placing it, because I wanted even margins of the Cajun Craze on the left side and the top side. I'm not worrying about those other 2 sides, just left side and top side. Equal margins of the Cajun Craze. Then I went ahead and stamped Thinking of You from the With You in Mind stamp set. I'm not sure if I said that on the first 2 cards. The Happy Birthday and the Thinking of You, those are from the With You in Mind stamp set. And this piece measures 3.5 inches by 1.5 inches. 3.5 by 1.5. Now, of course, if you're using different sentiments, you may need to change the dimensions to fit whatever you're using. And I'm just going to adhere this towards the bottom right corner. And again, just focusing on equal margins on the right side and the bottom, just those 2 sides. And I'll do the same thing to the other. Whoops. Wouldn't that be something if I ended up with a card and the sentiment was upside down? Goodness. Okay, now for this one, I am going to go ahead and add some embellishments. For this card only, I'm using the neutral matte dots. You can see I've used up a lot here, especially the black and the pecan pie, some of the beige, a few of the white. You know what I've realized when I have a multi-pack of embellishments, different colors, I seem to use up 1 or 2 of the colors the most. But then when those are gone, I'm kind of forced to think outside the box or think about using these other color embellishments in other ways, with other groupings, with other colors and stamp sets, that sort of thing. So it is a good thing when I run out of some of the colors or sizes. It kind of pushes me out of my comfort zone. And that's always a good thing. When that happens, it actually is making us more creative than we already are. So, and I'm going with 5. This is kind of a good space to need to fill in here. So 2 there, and then I'll do 3 in this larger blank space. And these basic beige neutral matte dots would have worked great on here as well. So that is, let's see, card sketch D. I'll place them up here, and you'll get to see all of these cards again at the end. Okay, next, I'm using these two pieces. And remember I said the one I'm going to flip over. I'm actually going to take that 3" by 1/2" strip and just cut it in half at an angle like that. And I'm going to put this on my silicone craft sheet so I'm not getting any more adhesive and glue on my glass mat. I need to clean that mat off a little bit. I was super busy and productive yesterday, but wasn't always careful about using that silicone craft sheet, so I got some gunky sticky spots. So this time my card base is a little bit different. I cut it to be 4 1/4 inches by 11 inches, 4 1/4 by 11, and I scored at 5 1/2. So with both this size card base and this one, you get 2 out of a single sheet of 8 1/2 by 11 cardstock with no waste. So that's always a good thing. So 4 1/4 inches by 11, and I scored at 5 1/2 inches on the long side or down the center. My basic beige, once again, is 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then I cut a piece of basic black that measures 3 1/4 inches by 5 1/2. 3 1/4 inches by 5 1/2. So it's the same length as my DSP cut from the One Sheet Wonder, but it's just a 1/4 inch wider. So the DSP measures 3 by 5 1/2, cut from the One Sheet Wonder, and I mounted it onto black that measures 3 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And I'm going to put these layers right in the center of my card base. This is one of the easiest card sketches. Many of these are all easy, and you know that that is my goal with my One Sheet Wonders, to give you One Sheet Wonders that are easy to follow the directions on, easy to replicate, and have easy to make card sketches that go with them. And to do it all with no waste of my DSP. So I think that's what makes my One Sheet Wonders so popular, is that you're not having to cut a gazillion pieces, especially teeny tiny pieces. Most people don't like teeny tiny pieces. Once in a while is okay, or a little bit, or one card, that's fine. But so often, and that's why I started designing my own One Sheet Wonders, because when I first was introduced to them many years ago, I was so overwhelmed. I was so overwhelmed with all the different kinds of cuts of the DSP, all of the teeny tiny pieces. And then I had to make, 14, 18 different cards. I want One Sheet Wonders that are easier and quicker and less stressful for both me and for you. So that truly is why I started designing my own. And I have stayed true to that I want them to be easy to replicate. And I want to take the time to walk you through the steps of cutting your DSP and then using the card sketches that I designed to go with the One Sheet Wonder. Now, as you can see, I've got my thank you message from the With You in Mind stamp set, stamped in Cajun Craze ink on basic beige cardstock. And then I punched it with a 2 1/4 inch punch. And then I punched another circle that is 2 3/8 inches and layered them together with dimensionals in between. I decided I wanted my dimension to be between the two circles. So then I'm going to take these layered circles and add them to my card front. more towards the top. About like that. And then that's all there is to that. So that is Card Sketch E. Card Sketch E. All right, next I'm going to bring back in all those strips. Whoops, I lost something here. Okay, I've got all these strips. And remember I said I had the piles 1, 2, 3. The reason I do it this way, taking one off the top of each stack, is because if I had, I'm looking here, do I have something to give you an example? But if I have more of a picture, designer series paper with more of a picture, I would want those pieces to go together so they look like it's a completed picture, almost like putting a puzzle together. So even though it's not going to matter as much with the cards I'm making now, I still wanted to show you that that's how I do it. So I'm going to be making 3 cards with Card Sketch F, and whoops, here it is. I've prepared all of my card bases. Basic black, 8.5 by 5.5 inches. And I've scored it 4 1/4 down the center. 4" by 5 1/4 inch basic beige on the inside. And then here I have a layer of Cajun Craze cardstock that measures 4 inches across and 1 1/8 inch deep. Okay, 4 by 1 1/8 inch. I used a 3/4 of an inch strip for my happy birthday, which comes from the Charming Day bundle. So I'm actually using sentiments from 3 different stamp sets today. So I'm going to flip all of these over and add some glue right to the center. I highly recommend when you're adhering strips that you use multi-purpose glue, because that gives you a little time to move or slide things around a bit. And I'm going to start by placing my left strip, and then I'm going to place my right strip, and I'm lining up the outside edges with the edge of my Cajun Craze strip at the top. And then my middle strip, I can center between the left and right strips. And by doing that, it makes it easier for me to not only get things straight and centered, but to have equal margins in and around, or between and around. I feel like this one doesn't match up for some reason. And it doesn't, so I think I pulled, maybe one slipped. Oh yes, one, nope. There it is. I must have messed up my piles when I pushed them off to the side and then brought them back in. But now you can see that's a good example of, I want it to be cohesive. I want it to be as if I pushed all 3 strips together, they would look like a completed puzzle or a completed image or pattern. Okay. So let's do the next one. And before I adhere these, I'll make sure that they all fit together like they should. I think it's going to be this one. And it is. That wasn't too hard. Once again, I'm putting a rather generous amount of glue on my 3 strips. I'll start by adding the left strip, matching up the side edge, outside edge with my Cajun Craze strip. Then I will use or adhere my right strip, again, the outside edge lining up with that Cajun Craze strip at the top, and then my center strip. And press them down so they aren't sliding around anymore. And then I'll do the same thing with my last set of 3 strips. Remember, these started out being rectangles that were 3 3/4 inch by 4 inches that I cut from my One Sheet Wonder. And then I took each of those, and with the 3 3/4 inch side at the top, I cut it into 1 1/4 inch strips. Generous amount of glue so that I can move or slide my strips around if I need to. Left, right, and then center. Doing it in that order, left, right, and center, makes it real easy to get equal spacing between your strips. So here are my 3 Card Sketch F cards. Okay, so I want to bring these all back in, but I also want to show you my samples so you can see what I did to step up each of these basic One Sheet Wonder cards and sketches. So here's what I made with Card Sketch A. Okay, fun little banner piece that adds cutting a banner end like I did here just adds a nice touch instead of a straight piece of DSP. I used this leafy branch from the Charming Day bundle. It's this one right here. And die cut that several times from Garden Green cardstock. And you will see that I've used this particular die cut several times to embellish my cards. So there's Card Sketch A. Here's Card Sketch B. And here is my completed, stepped up, embellished card. I added one of the leafy branches flat, and then one with mini Stampin' dimensionals, and I finished off with a cute linen thread bow that I adhered with a dot of glue. All right, next are cards 3 of Card Sketch C. And basically my samples are the very same with one exception. I wanted to show you an alternative. Here is the alternative. There is a die with the Loveliest Tree bundle that cuts out that big tree. So there's an alternative. If you're using that stamp set and coordinating die, you can do the alternative and die cut your tree, or you can just leave it as is on your rectangle of basic beige cardstock. Next was pretty much the same. The only difference was I had a few of the um, large neutral matte dots to use on my sample cards. So card sketch, excuse me, D. Card sketch E is the same, but as I was doing this, I thought, oh, maybe I want to add some of these neutral matte dots to this. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it's going to be like so subtle, but I'm excited about it. Oh, maybe I want to use the larger ones. I am. I'm going to use the larger ones. I'm just going to decorate these banners just a wee bit. And again, over here, actually I might change it up a bit and put that one higher. And I kind of like that. I noticed myself saying wee bit a lot. I've been watching Outlander. Has anybody watched it? It's a good series. I'm really, really enjoying it. I like the historical aspects of it. And it's just kind of neat and different, but it's been very engaging for me. Makes me think of my dad a lot too, because my dad, he's been gone 35 years, but he was a high school teacher, and his degree was in social studies. So he taught history, government, economic psychology, the social studies. But he would have really enjoyed this historical value in that. But anyways, they use the word, they're from Scotland, and they use the word wee a lot for little. Wee bit, a wee bit, or a wee morsel, or wee lad, wee lass, that kind of thing for boy and girl. And then here is, where did I put my, oh, here they are. So here's card sketch F, the basic card. And then this is how I finished it off, with more of the leaves and with a linen bow. One set of leaves is adhered flat. The one to the left of it, the branch to the left of it, adhered with mini Stampin' dimensionals. And here, I took one of these branches and just cut off the top 3 leaves and added them in that upper right corner. So there you have it, a set of, I'll put this one here, a set of 12 cards with one sheet of the Weekend Adventures Designer Series paper, a few, 3 colors for a nice color combination, basic black, Cajun craze, and basic beige, with a punch of garden green in there. And 6 card sketches, 6 easy card layouts that you can use any time of year. And one thing that I want you to keep in mind with my One Sheet Wonders and the card sketches, the card sketches are fabulous, and they were designed specifically for the One Sheet Wonder I created for you. However, you don't need to use those card sketches just with the One Sheet Wonder. You can decide, hey, I really love this card or this card sketch or layout, and I want to make 6 of these. Go ahead and do that. You can do that without necessarily doing the whole One Sheet Wonder. Okay. So in addition to my One Sheet Wonders and card sketches being easy to make, fun, no stress, 0 waste, they're very versatile, because you can use these One Sheet Wonders with any of your favorite papers, whether they're directional or non-directional. Just follow my steps and use the same card sketches, and it all works. And they're also very versatile because you do get the different layouts, the different card sketches that you can use individually together with the one sheet wonder by themselves, however you like. So I hope this demonstration of my November weekend adventures one sheet wonder has inspired you to do some creating today. I love making sets of cards. I think if you're making one, why not make two? If I'm making two and I can use a one sheet wonder and make several, build up my stash, um, it's a great thing in my opinion. It's a win all the way around. So I hope you feel the same way. I have lots of other one sheet wonders as well here on my YouTube channel, Stampin' Piece with Mary Knabe, as well as many other videos. So please like and share this channel, subscribe to my channel, and you can also find more detailed information on all of my videos over on my blog, stampinpiece.com, which is sort of the hub of everything. There I have products used, lots of other kinds of videos and demonstrations, and I think you'll find it very useful, as well as some great resources there. Have a great day. Wishing you peace, joy, and happy stamping as always. Until we meet again, take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon.